Most of us are exhausted today because we're trying to force ourselves into a version of balance that was never designed for actual humans. When burnout becomes normalized, people stop asking whether their lives are sustainable. They just assume they personally need to get better and become stronger. They need to be more disciplined, more resilient, and more efficient. No amount of optimization can fix a life that requires you to abandon yourself in order to survive it. Welcome to season 3 of Right There With You. I'm so excited to the listeners and the community that we've built. This season's going to be a little bit different. You're going to hear more of me and more of some special guests. My name is Cass. I'm the Chaos Whisperer. I'm so glad to have you in this community with me. And without further ado, here is episode 1. Let's talk about burnout, baby. One of the biggest lies that we're sold is that the idea we can manage our time better, organize ourselves better, and optimize ourselves better. Eventually, the world will feel manageable. We'll be clear, we'll be balanced, we'll be sustained. But what if work-life balance was never actually the goal? Because balance really implies equal distribution, equal weight, equal energy, and equal output. I don't know about your life, but my life never has worked that way. Some seasons have required more from me. Some seasons have broken me open. Some seasons have asked me to rest more than I was emotionally prepared to do. And some seasons required just plain survival. Others required rebuilding. I think most of us are exhausted today because we're trying to force ourselves into a version of balance that was never designed for actual humans, especially those of us who are carrying a lot. People who learned early that their value came from how much they could endure rather than their humanity. For years, I genuinely believed my life would feel better if I could just be more disciplined, more organized, more productive, and definitely more optimized. But eventually I realized I did not need to buy another planner. So no, I'm not here to try to convince you to get another planner. I needed a permission slip to stop treating myself like a machine. And honestly, that realization changed my life. A few years ago, my life looked very successful on paper. I was working in corporate leadership. I was managing a team. I was traveling, building relationships, producing results, hitting all of my goals and all my KPIs. Externally, everything looked great, but internally, I was exhausted. I was exhausted in ways I didn't fully recognize or understand how to articulate. And at the time, I was navigating the slow collapse of my marriage while trying to maintain the appearance of stability everywhere else. Every morning felt like an Olympic event. You know the feeling. You wake up with your kid or before your children. I would try to stretch, maybe drink a little bit of coffee or eat some breakfast if there was time. Then I would wake her up. I would get her dressed, get her fed, get her across town to school during rush hour traffic. She couldn't arrive before 8:15 and couldn't arrive after 8:30, so the window was very small. Then I had to somehow make it across town myself to be at work by 9 a.m., looking polished, professional, emotionally regulated, and ready to perform. And if you've ever lived in a major city, you know that nothing is restful about sitting in morning traffic, already emotionally behind before the day even begins. I would arrive at work and I would start my second shift. And here's the thing that was important. I was very good at my job, very good. And that's what made it so dangerous because competence can hide suffering for a very, very long time. On paper, I was very successful. I was producing, I was achieving, I was leading, I was performing well. But underneath all of it, I was slowly disappearing from my own life. A lot of people I know and a lot of clients I've been working with know exactly how that feels. Because high functioning burnout is a very real thing. Burnout doesn't always look like collapse. It looks like overachievement. It can be numbness, decision fatigue, loss of creativity, increased emotional detachment from others and from yourself, an inability to rest, crying over things that don't make sense anymore because your nervous system is just simply overwhelmed. Eventually, I realized something really important. I wasn't exhausted because I was bad at managing anything in my life. I was exhausted because my life required chronic self-abandonment in order to maintain it. That was a very difficult problem to identify. And I think a lot of people are quietly living inside that same tension right now. Productivity culture rewards overfunctioning. Corporate culture rewards overexertion and self-abandonment, specifically for women, even more so for Black women and women of color. Those of us who are seen as capable, we are the ones who are reliable. We are the people who become the emotional infrastructure of organizations. We're the fixer, the helper, the strong one, the stable one, the one who's the most dependable. And eventually, that exhaustion starts to feel normal. It's the part that nobody talks about. When burnout becomes normalized, people stop asking whether their lives are sustainable. They just assume they personally need to get better and become stronger. They need to be more disciplined, more resilient, and more efficient. But no amount of optimization can fix a life that requires you to abandon yourself in order to survive it. So that's when I stopped chasing balance. I started thinking about rhythm instead, because rhythm leaves room for humanity. Rhythm understands that life moves in seasons and waves. Sometimes seasons are heavy, sometimes they require more rest. Sometimes seasons are expansive, sometimes they're filled with grief, with joy, and some seasons, quite frankly, are just there to help you survive. Your rhythm is going to adapt. Balance demands some sort of perfection. There's an equal side to each part of the equation. And honestly, I think work-life balance language ignores too much of our lived realities. It ignores caregiving. It ignores race. It ignores gender, disability, economics, mental health, identity, access. It ignores the reality that not everyone is carrying the same thing. And eventually, I had to become very honest with myself. Some of the things I had built my life around looked very successful on the outside, but they didn't bring me joy. And honestly, coming to that reality was very uncomfortable. I had tied so much of my identity to being capable, to being productive, to being useful, to being the strong, dependable one. But capability is not the same as alignment. And eventually, I was forced to ask myself, what kind of life am I actually trying to sustain? What kind of life looks impressive? What kind of life performs well publicly? And what kind of life actually supports me back? That question is one that floored and changed everything. It changed how I work, how I rest, how I lead, how I communicate, and how I define success. Now, rhythm for me looks very different. It means closing my laptop even when there's still unread emails, going to bed at a reasonable hour, which, quite frankly, I'm not always great at. It means recognizing that someone else's poor planning is not automatically my emergency, understanding that rest is not weakness, it's a source of strength. It requires me to understand that humanity deserves to exist at the center of my life, the one that I am building, not just on the fringes and the outside of it. And honestly, this podcast season feels deeply personal because I'm still learning all of this in real time. I spent years helping other people amplify their voices, helping leaders communicate clearly, helping organizations navigate change, and helping creators build visibility and strategy across their messaging platform. And yet, standing fully on my own voice publicly, it's a little scary. I've started and restarted podcasts more times than I can count under different names, different formats, and different visions. And if I'm being honest, a lot of it was caught in self-doubt, not because I didn't know what I'm talking about. I very much do. The degrees speak for themselves. But because visibility requires a certain amount of vulnerability that I don't know that I'm always comfortable with. Let's face it, vulnerability is uncomfortable, especially when I've built my identity around being the one who's the most capable. So every episode this season, I'm going to ask my guests, what chaos are you currently whispering to? And honestly, mine is the belief that I need to be fully certain before I can begin again. And I don't think certainty is the goal anymore. I think honesty is, rigorous honesty. And that's the actual work that we're here to do together, not to become fearless, but becoming honest enough to move anyway. So if you're listening while rebuilding, restarting, relearning yourself, questioning your relationship with work, with ambition, with exhaustion, with your own personal identities, I just want you to know you're not failing because balance feels impossible. Maybe balance was never actually the goal. The goal was rhythm all along. Burnout is not always weakness. Sometimes it's the natural outcome of surviving systems that reward disconnection from yourself. And balance was never going to save us from that, but clarity might, honesty might, community definitely will, and the right rhythm just might too. I'm Cass Cooper. I'm the Chaos Whisperer, and I'm right there with you. Thank you so much for listening. If this episode gave you language for something you've been carrying, I'm so glad. Clarity is a skill and it's one that you can build, but you got to build it in community. Let's go deeper together inside of the Patreon. You can find the link in the show notes. Be sure to turn on your notifications, like, subscribe, share, all the things. Leave me a comment. I really do read every single one of them. If something really stood out to you, I'd love to hear about it. If not, you can keep it to yourself. I appreciate the engagement though. Until next time, remember, stop reacting and start interpreting.